Welcome, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge Podcast. That's right. We are back live tonight right here via YouTube at youtube.com/SLounge Podcast. That's right. Hello, everybody out there. I am indeed your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and we are here to talk about Bigfoot tonight. As promised, we did put together an entire show, including some news. And so let's start out tonight. Right here tonight with a little bit of getting newsy with you. All right, let's take a look here. First article up tonight is Tahoe's Taylor Creek is full of big kokanee salmon, and the bears are loving it. That's right, so be careful out there. The salmon run has returned to the Tahoe area, and Taylor Creek is currently up to its gills with spawning kokanee salmon. Due to the wet winter of 2019, experts predicted a prosperous salmon run this fall, but seeing these big, beautiful fish in their natural habitat is always a wonderful sight. The landlocked kokanee salmon return to Taylor Creek each fall, typically in October, to spawn. These magnificent looking fish look straight out of the fall catalog due to their bright red hue. That's right. And these suckers ain't got no choice. They can't get out to the ocean because we built a great big dam in their way. Isn't that a bitch? Anyhow, it's good to see that they're having an abundance of salmon this year and that the bear are going to be big, fat, and happy and hibernating here real soon. Well, California finally did something halfway decent. Eating roadkill is now legal in California, as if it wasn't before. That's correct. If you hit a deer before this, you really didn't have a right to put it in the back of your truck and take it home and harvest the meat. As of Sunday, October 15th, Baby Gavin Newsom signed the Senate Bill 395, which allows people to take home animals they kill while operating a motor vehicle in California. The scenario was played out exactly in the memorable scene from the 1993 classic, The Beverly Hillbillies. Be careful, though. Don't aim for the deer. Because if they see you aiming for the deer and hitting it, then they'll call you a poacher and put you in jail and hem you up with a bunch of felonies. And it's ridiculous what Fish and Game does out of here. So just don't aim for them. That's all I can tell you. Don't aim for the deer. This one was hysterical. The Isle of Wight model Triceratops left right in the middle of High Street. That's right. A 25-foot to 7.6 meter model of a Triceratops had to be removed from the High Street in Godsville on the Isle of Wight after it was dragged from the Jurassic Garden. Owner Martin Simpson said he was shocked to see the model appearing on social media over the weekend. The dinosaur is part of Mr. Simpson's shop garden, where he sells prehistoric gems and fossils. He said it takes about 5 blokes to move a dinosaur a couple of inches, so it was definitely a concerted effort, and drink was possibly involved. Hey, y'all, hold my beer. That's right. Hey, a couple of weeks back, we talked about the stolen 6-foot Bigfoot statue. Well, it has now been found, all safe and sound in the California woods. I guess he just wanted to go home. Apparently, the statue of Bigfoot had been found in the Avery County woods months after it was reported stolen. The 180-pound statue, which had been stolen from the Mountaineer Landscaping in Lindenville in August, was found in a wooded area in the Edgemont community. Well, congratulations to getting your Bigfoot back home to you. All right. And here's a peek inside Colorado Sasquatch Museum and the mind of a believer from out there, Colorado.com. That's right. You may want Jim Myers to be weirder than he is, but standing behind the counter of his store, he wears an Auburn University baseball cap and pets his dog, Teddy, who is shy almost around people. Myers kindly looks into your eyes when he talks. He helps the customer adjust a newly purchased hiking pole. The way Myers talks, you might forget he's not just in any store, but that would be hard because of the life-size Bigfoot statue that greets visitors when they walk up to the place. That's right. He built a museum in the back full of evidence. Some he procured on his own and some borrowed from other researchers from over the past century. He jokes about how Sasquatch smells bad. Myers says he believed in Bigfoot since he was a kid and saw a movie about it. He's a Christian, and he says it takes more faith to believe in God than it does in Bigfoot. It all makes you wonder why he believes, and if he's seemingly a normal person and believes, then why doesn't the next person? Well, yeah, there you go. That's a good question. Well, the next person is too easily fooled into thinking things are already found. There is nothing new out there to discover, and that, my friends, would be wrong. Speaking of wrong or right, if you like what we do here on the podcast, you can support us at Patreon. That's right. Patreon.com/Cryptid Corner gets you into Reverend Jeff's Cryptid Corner and Paranormal Escapades. General admission is just $1, and that gets you access to all of the Bigfoot Campfire Stories that come out upon the feed, because there will be no more new ones released to YouTube. That YouTube has lost they have lost their beloved minds, and I just won't be part of it anymore. So there we have it, folks. We are right here back at YouTube at patreon.com/Cryptid Corner. All right, there we go, folks. That is this week's news. All right. That looks like it went out there pretty decent. Okay, we're trying to keep this audio in a decent way of being good. So next up tonight, we usually run with a Quasi theory. So let's give it a little time and we'll see what happens. Here's Dean Cooper's Quasi Rewind. And now, Quasi Theories from a Quasi Scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
It's gone viral. Viruses are everywhere. There are 10 to the 33rd power of these teensy buggers on the planet. Just the weight of those in the ocean equals 75 million blue whales. They're in your gut tract, in dirt, in food. They're even on the fringes of space, way high up in the atmosphere. Most viruses are not pathogens. We don't even know what the hell most viruses do, other than that they exist. Chunks of viral DNA make up a good part of the chordate genome. All of us creatures with anything like a backbone are chordates. This viral DNA in us is pretty much from viruses called retroviruses. They get in a cell and hijack the DNA, sticking their little genome into the DNA of the host cell to make the host cell crank out more of the virus when the cell does its usual business. Now, retroviruses are messy little buggers when it comes to reproducing themselves. When a new little retrovirus pops out, it frequently has a bit of the host DNA as part of its genome, which then gets jammed into the DNA of a new host. The interesting part of the show happens when the retrovirus attacks an egg or a sperm cell, and the egg or a sperm cell gets lucky. And I do mean in the naughty nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more kind of lucky. The newly formed chordate progeny now has some of whatever that virus has been in before stuck into it, which can be made more interesting if that virus has gone and jumped species, like from pigs to birds to humans to, well, you get my drift, genetic drift. Important things are known to have come from such retroviral shenanigans. Things like how placentas form during pregnancy in different mammals, where similar things occur, but were caused by chunks of DNA inserted by different retroviruses in different species of mammals. Geneticists and microbiologists are really just beginning to look into this. Here's why I go all quasi on the subject. I've been thinking that viruses are small enough to be quantum entangled. That is, you can produce a state in a group of them such that if you tickle one of them, the others will start giggling too. What you do to one of them happens to the other ones as well. I therefore Googled it and found out that I'm not the only one who thinks so. There are scientists actually doing research, real experiments on the hypothesis, and there's evidence that it really happens. Now, if viruses are a major force driving evolution, and they apparently are, and they can be quantum entangled, which they apparently can, and quantum entanglement works through a higher order reality or dimension, which is what theoretical physics currently thinks, is there a higher order intelligence or intelligences doing some of that quantum linking? When I look at evolutionary history, I see life going from exceedingly simple organisms to more complex ones, to a highly complex, highly interdependent system, which is the opposite of what the theory of entropy says should happen. And by higher order intelligences, I do not mean ancient aliens. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi-theory of the week. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
One of my favoriteest of all times is the virus. I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's right. That's a good question to have. Well, while we're at it, let's give it a shot. Weren't able to do it last week, but maybe this week we will. Let's try the camping tips for stupids from the Gone Camping channel in the mind of Jevin Moore.
Camping tips for hosers. Tip number 52, eh? So this will be like the Canadian edition, eh? Oh, and it's not like this is being sponsored by any like beer companies, but so like if I figured that if I mentioned them, they would like maybe send over some free samples, eh? And be like, hey, thanks for like mentioning me, eh? So yeah, here's some beer stuff. So good day, eh? So you're like camping out in the upper Klondike, eh? And you're setting up your campsite, and you got your campfire set up, and you know you got your tent all pitched and stuff. And then when it's all done, like the stupid hoser door is on the wrong side of the damn tent, eh? Because if you're like me, you want the tent facing the campfire, eh? And so it's not. And well, that's like a problem with the manufacturer, eh? It's really hit or miss with tents. They just don't make them like they used to, eh? So one thing I found you can do is like get a knife and make a new door, eh? One that faces a campfire. But then you get the problem of getting rain or snow in your tent, and then you're like, no way. So be careful with the quality of your tents you get, eh? So, like, you got your campsite all set up, eh? But you still need to figure out where to put all that beer, eh? Well, one easy trick is to, like, just get a beer truck, eh? And just store all the beer in that. Because, you know, it's, like, portable that way, eh? And don't worry about, like, needing one that's refrigerated or nothing. Just leave the back door open, eh? And if any hosers from other campsites come over and try to take some of your beer, just tell them to take off. Just take off. But if they want to store their beer in the truck too, then okay. Okay, so you're out on the river trying to do your fly fishing, eh? And a big hoser moose comes out of the bushes right by you and stares you down, eh? So you're like, what do you do? Well, one trick I learned is that moose are intimidated by anything with bigger antlers than what they got, eh? So one trick I did was like take a Viking helmet, and all I did was just duct tape my snowshoes to it, eh? So they look like big antlers. And so you put that on your head and you look back at the moose, eh? And the moose will see you and be like, no way. Take off. This has been Camping Tips for Hosers. Remember to bring enough beer, eh?
I think that has got to be like the most offensive camping tips for stupids that we have ever done, my friends. Wow, that was amazingly offensive to Canadians, but good thing Canadians don't actually get offended, so we're okay. Congratulations. Wow, I forgot how bad that one really was, but in the same time, that was fantastic. Thank you there, Jevin, for camping tips for stupids, my man. All right, hey, it's time to give the shout outs to the Hangout. Let's see who is hanging out live with us tonight. There we go. We got Mr. Rod Dupree. There he is. He's always in the place to be. There's Miss Bella Alegria. She's hanging out with us tonight. Tim McCune. Oh, there he is, right there. There's Don Rife. He's going to check in here again a little bit. Thought he was going to be slick on me, but I see you, Slick Willie. There's Dean Cooper, Quasi theorist himself. Hello there, sir. Kenneth the Viking, he's checking in twice. See how that works. There's Miss Natalie Smith. So glad that you are feeling better and things are going a little bit better in your life. That's for sure. Mr. Shane Barber. Hey, man. Glad you're with us. Let's see here. We're rolling on down the line here. Aaron Duncan, there he is, digging that gold stuff out of the ground. I'm with you, man. I'm going to go on Friday, see if I can't do me a little bit of metal detecting and find me something in the ground. That's for sure. Root Man, how you doing there, Root Man? Glad you are with us. Your Hobo Man 5, 4, 3. He's checking in with us tonight as well as Obsidian Radio. There's Karen Robb. There she is. All righty. Moving on down the line here. Hoshu Salazar. Hello there. Glad you could join us as well. Yeah, all of a sudden I got a Hispanic to my tongue. My name is Roberto Labadante. Yeah, no, actually not. Mid-South Squatch. How you doing there, champ? Glad you are with us as well. Frank G, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Titan 88, Titan Glass 88. Glad you are with us tonight as well. Yeah, picture comes and goes. I turn it off for certain things just so I can free up some resources. My computer still sucks, but I'm working on it. SMP 156. You don't understand? Yeah, there's a lot of us that don't understand stuff. It's okay. We can read it to you, but we can't comprehend it for you. Yeah, it's about Bigfoot. We'll get there. You'll be fine. Let's see here. King of the Forest. There he is. Or her. Well, him, I guess it's King of the Forest. So glad you are with us as well. We'll say a shout out, Christopher, man. If you're out there, eat your vegetables because I know you're gonna. All right, we're gonna be back at it here now live. We'll do it this way and we'll kick it over this way and we'll see what happens. Is that right? Tonight we're talking about Matress Squatch. Year was 2008, February, Oregon. County was Lane County. The Alderwood State Wayside Park. The witness ID has been withheld. Was documented by Cliff Barackman, of course, and we're looking at it here upon his website at cliffbarackman.com. Find us all this information up there. The saga started when they checked this email on the morning of February 16th, 2018, while in Nebraska for the 2018 Nebraska Bigfoot contest. An email was written at 11:08 p.m. the night before, the subject heading of tracks found today. I opened the email and found that a friend of the email's author had located and photographed footprints on an old discarded futon mattress on a pullout along Oregon's Route 36. Exasperated, I thought to myself, why do all the really cool things happen when I'm out of town? The photographs were interesting. One of them had a lighter as a scale item showing that the prints were not huge, but were likely larger than most human prints would be. The toe splay was very impressive, as was the print's width. They looked very good to me, which got me very excited about the find. And we take a look at it here. And it's got a ruler down there for scale. So it is, we're talking roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 16, 15, 16 inches long, 9 inches wide. Again, one of that, twice as long as it is wide kind of a deal, is with a wider at the ball of the foot. But the toe splay is what's interesting here. I mean, it's definitely not like a grab. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody could not have used a cast or a rubber foot or something else to leave an impression like this. But let's see what else Cliff had to say on the subject. Now, they had a professional obligation to speak. So the first call was to one of the best Bigfooters I know and his favorite people in general, who lives in a general area, Chris Minyanyar. I can't pronounce that last name. Sorry, Chris. Chris was a man who spent the rainy night back in 2012 casting the London tracks at the Cottage Grove Reservoir. By the way, Cliff, when you get a chance, I would love to really get your final opinion on the London tracks. I think the time's really come for a closure on that. Maybe we can get together and do some kind of a summary sum up I guess that's what a summary is. Summary of the event, and just call it what it is, a hoax, or call it what it is, still unknown. They videoed parts of the investigation. There was, one of those things. The footprints watchers are now safely in Cliff's possession, and steps are being taken for their permanent preservation. So they actually cut the futon apart, and Cliff has taken possession of these actual footprints. And, it's... Why would a Bigfoot walk across the futon mattress was the main question that was really being asked when these came across. Now, you see here, my estimates were actually off. This looks like it's about 13, maybe 14 inches long, and probably 6 or 7.5 inches across. But it does have that magical ratio that everybody is kind of looking for. When you look at it, in this particular light, you look at how much movement there was in it, how much dynamic stress there was on the material, that the whatever was their weight, was it just placed there and rubbed in? I mean, this looks like something actually stepped, put a bunch of weight on it, and left a dirty impression upon, whatever the substrate, this in this case being a futon mattress, actually was. From some angles in which the depth of the impression is easily seen, there seems to be indicators of a midfoot flexibility. As is well documented, Sasquatch push off from the base, the back part of their mid-tarsals, as opposed to humans who push off from the heads, the front part of theirs. The depth of the footprint into the mattress, as well as the wrinkle raised from the force of the push off while walking, suggests it's also the case with the track maker in this case. Can also be seen in the photographs above that the toe splay is quite wide, and that's what kind of has me, stumped. Most human beings don't have this type of movement in their toes any longer because we've spent most of our lives in constraining shoes, which, make the toes not do this type of thing very well. Yes, there are people who live shoeless and still have this kind of flexibility in their feet, but they're usually people who live in the jungle and don't have homes. Anyhow, the footprints do not appear to be human in any way. They are rather long, though admittedly not outside the variability of some humans. However, the feet grown to be this long, they are always quite narrow. For example, if you look at the second largest man's footprint in the shoe, long and narrow versus twice as wide as it is long. And that's always why we're looking for that type of a magic ratio when it comes to these types of tracks. The fact that both feet are represented is very fortuitous. It would have been nice to have multiple examples from the same foot, also to ensure toe variety and the like, but we can be thankful for what we have. Indeed, we are very lucky to have been able to record any of this, considering the weather conditions and the circumstances. To the best of knowledge, this is the only example of footprints being removed from a site on cloth or something similar. There have been other situations where muddy marks have been left by a passing Sasquatch, but none that have been collected and brought back for others to examine. So there you go. There's a whole bunch of pictures that are associated with this particular find. When you look at them, like I said, you can it definitely feels as though something dynamic stepped down on the pad, put pressure on the pad, and left this impression upon the mattress. There, finally, that's what I was looking for, was a picture of the mattress itself. And that's where it walked, where the two squares are missing. It took 2 steps. It stepped onto it, stepped across it, and stepped off of it. I just wonder why. Because if you look at all of the grass around this particular picture, you'll notice that A, it's laying on a game trail, which is kind of strange to say this to say the first thing. B, all the vegetation around it's already been pattered down by something big walking around this thing. So why all of a sudden something else that would decide to walk across it is the curious part of it. The impression in the mud. That goes along with the tracks. Here's a picture of where the road that it was laid up off of. The cut measurements of the swath that they took out of it. That's the gate difference. That's how big the step was between the first step and the second step. And Cliff's not exactly an NBA basketball player, but that's still a pretty big gate for just about anybody. I wouldn't be making those kind of steps in the woods, not whatsoever. So this is one of the more curious cases I wanted to take a look at. Now, going along with that, of course, the BFRO, we know, has a bunch of sighting reports, and Lane County, Oregon, definitely seems to be a hot spot for those as well. We can go back here. It was the year 2004 in the summer of July. Lane County, Cottage Grove. My two sons and I were camping this weekend at the One Potato Mineral Campground, just up the Forest Service access road from Mineral Camp. We were hiking up the steep road leading towards the ghost town mining area in the early evening. We kept talking about a strange bird sound, the whoop, 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 and just dismissed it as some weird bird. I happened across your website because I was looking for information on the Bohemia mine and had chills and goosebumps when I read your journal entry. We also heard heavy footsteps outside of our tent on Saturday night, July 17th. And then in the very early morning, around 4 a.m., I could smell something really nasty. Here, something had marked our tarp and our tent. The urine smell was so strong, we had to leave our tent tarp behind. We do really believe now that we had a Sasquatch encounter. We look back a little closer than that. It was January of 2010 near Blue River in the Mackenzie Valley. They were outside going to the bathroom by a creek approximately 20 feet away, and across the creek about 35 yards away, I hear a hooting, howling coming from a crop of trees. I immediately go outside. We hear the sound from inside the yurt 25 feet from the creek 2 more times. Later that night, about 30 minutes, I went outside with a flashlight to survey the hillside when I seen a faint outline of something duck behind a group of trees. I immediately went inside. The next morning, I went outside to check things out, and there was a footprint leading towards the front door of the yurt. It's a very steep hill leading to the yurt, so the print was only on the ball of the foot, and it took the first 3 toes. Embedded in the muddy print, there were several small white-brown hairs that I collected. There was also a hair on the door. My friend and I have been hearing the sounds for months, but much deeper in the mountains, never this close. My friend's dad had been hearing the same sounds from deep in the mountains since he moved there in 1984. 2012 in September, again in Lee County. Nearest town is Florence. My partner and I were bow hunting for elk just outside the major power lines running down the North Fork of the Siuslaw River. He set up to call elk under the power lines just in the brush from the open field area, and I proceeded up the road as it enters the forest to set up at a creek area the road crossed. As I approached my setup point, I could clearly hear a very loud knocking. It was not patterned, but it was like a sound I never heard in my 30 years of hunting in Oregon forest. It sounded very distinctly of stone, possibly an enormous piece of wood, but I really have decided it had to be stone on a very hard substance of some sort, like a solid piece of wood. This knocking had to be less than 75 yards from where I was, and it would continue in small groups, like 3 to 4 knocks, a pause, and then follow up between 10 and 20 seconds with 1 or 2 more knocks. Silence for about another minute, and then go again. This went on long enough that I was very seriously starting to think a person might be up there, but we were behind a locked gate with no other cars parked there, and there's just no way anyone could walk through the forest from the other side. It's like miles and miles of timber and undergrowth. I don't even know where to get to where I was. About 15 minutes after the knocking stopped, I started moving up the road quietly towards the rustling to make sure I was in bow range. I had dismissed the knocking as was thinking elk were coming to the call at this stage. I set up 3 different times along the road, hugging the brush with my camo to help conceal me. The third time I was set up in the more open, I was standing next to a thinner tree. This was about 30 minutes after the knocking stopped. I was straining hard at the brush, and it would still rustle in approximately the same place, like something was stirring, but not really moving towards the call anymore. Then out of nowhere, about 30 yards from my setup, was a super loud knock on the only large tree in that spot. It totally freaked me out. There was no way that was an elk or a bear. I can't decide if it was the same creature that was knocking first, and it moved to the area to look for my partner and then spotted me on the original knocking, called up another creature that spotted me, and it was moving towards the original knocking. Either way, it was too dark to see my bow sight pins anymore, and my partner moved out of the brush to the road, so I quickly crept up the road with an eye towards the brush, looking for what made the sound. I spoke with him, and he said he heard some knocks, but had dismissed them. When I explained the knocks, he couldn't really come up with any plausible counter explanation. And by the time we got back to the car, it was almost pitch black, nearly 8 o'clock at night. Oh, I don't want to do that. It's all fun and games till Bigfoot shows up. And we got one more to finish out the night here. The year was 2016, January, wintertime. Nearest town is Springfield, near High Banks Road. The 20th of January, about 11 o'clock at night, I was driving towards Highway 126 on High Banks Road. I saw a large animal covered in long hair in a field to the right of the road. It was a lot larger than a bear. It was so out of place in the open field. I was frozen still. I haven't seen any cattle in that field lately. I regret not stopping to take a picture. I was on my way to a doctor's appointment and had a car tailing me. I was planning on asking the farmer who owns the property what animals he's had in the field lately. It's on private property, and I don't know if the person in the car behind me saw it or not. Wow. That's one of those things. Bigfoot always kind of shows up when you're least expecting it. And yeah, I can totally understand that. Where the heck did that go? There we go. Needed to get that off of that line. Well, look at that. It's already bringing us up to the very end of the Squatchers Lounge podcast this week. I appreciate you guys all being out there. Let's take a quick peek back out into see who we've missed here tonight and see if anybody showed up late. We'll give a little bit of late hangout shout outs in case I missed anybody. It looks like I did miss a few of you guys out there. So let's see here who showed up late tonight. We'll say hi to, there we go. Sorry, there's a moment. There we go. Mike Samples, he's in the house with us tonight as well. Jeremy Crotier. Hi there, sir. Glad you are with us as well. And I think I saw another one down here. Eric Wright. Hello there, sir. Glad you are with us as well. And remember, folks, tomorrow is Halloween. So when the older kids come up to the door and go trick or treat, remember you had a choice. Choice number 1 was trick. Choice number 2 is treat. If you tell them that they're too old to get a treat, you best expect a trick. That's not called mischief night for nothing. Those kids could be doing a lot worse than knocking on your door and begging for a piece of candy. And with that, my friends, I want to thank every one of you guys for being out here tonight. We will see you next week. And here is a Bigfoot campfire story to finish it all out. And with that, happy Halloween tomorrow, and may the Squatch be with you. I thought I pushed the button. Maybe not. What the? You guys hear that? Holy crap. I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Welcome to season 2. Welcome to another season 2 episode of Bigfoot Campfire Stories. Well, Pete and Max are avid hunters in the Mendocino National Forest. Each year they hunt deer, wild hogs, the occasional black bear, But on this hunt, they discovered a home area unlike any they had encountered before. Let's hear their story. It was Saturday morning, the third week in October. Deer season had been open for about 20 days, and so far we hadn't shot a thing or even been close enough to take a shot, but we're leaving extra early in the hopes that we would get it done and be back before dark. Hole Mountain was about halfway into the park, and we should reach the bottom of it just before dawn, which has been successful for us before. So Max put the metal to the pedal, and down we went. 90 minutes later, we were there. We parked on the side of the forest road and set off just as the sun tipped its hat to us for the beginning of the day. We had walked the game trail for about 90 minutes when we came to this little clearing that led to a meadow with a small lake on the other side. We had a set of two-way radios with us, so we decided to put about 90 yards distance between us and take different angles on that small lake. We're not one just to take a deer, but it kind of needs to be the right deer. It was about 8:30 now, and lots of the animal activity had picked up around the lake. There were some resident ducks and a bunch of rodents just running all over the meadow. A small doe wandered in by herself, and we both had a shot, but neither of us thought that it was the right shot of the day. The morning had beginning to slip away from us, and it was starting to push towards 11 a.m. when I saw a really nice 8-point buck traveling with a few does come into view. Well, I radioed over to Max and told him that I was going to take this buck, and his reply was that he didn't have a shot, so go ahead. Well, I steadied myself against the log that I'd been posted up on all day. I lined up the perfect organ area shot and smoothly squeezed the trigger. Boom! Perfect shot. The buck jumped straight up in the air and then collapsed just out of sight at the edge of the lake. Max, hearing the shot, knowing that I don't miss, called on the radio to see if we had to track it, and sure enough, he was meeting me halfway through the lake with the processing gear in hand. We hunt for the meat, so we process most of it right there in the woods and leave the rest for the scavengers, helping to feed the local wildlife. Well, the closer we got to the lakeside, the more we heard these strange sounds. They sounded like grumbly whooping sound and a loud thud against a tree every so often. Well, Max and I approached the shot site and found where the buck had laid down after jumping, but it was no longer there. A few tufts of hair and a bunch of blood, and then some drips of blood leading off. Max thought maybe he got up and was wandering around hurt, so now we do have to go and find it. We started walking across pattern back and forth trying to locate the body, just moving in the general direction of the blood drops. But both of us realized that we're headed closer to whatever these weird noises are, and we decided it was best to figure out what the sound was and then come back and find the buck. Again and again, a weird whoop and a thud of a branch against a tree and mumbled smacking. Not words, but nearly sounding happy. Well, finally, as we rounded a large down tree, we could see in front of us, but surely only very few people got to see in a lifetime. 3 very large, very hairy beings, creatures, hanging together near a small waterfall, and they were eating the organs out of our buck. Sure enough, laying there at the feet of these creatures was the buck I had shot at the lakeside. As Max and I were closing in on the one shot, one of the creatures must have found it and brought it back here to share with the others. The first one was obviously male. He seemed to be dueling the meat out as he would reach down and rip out a large piece of meat covered in still warm blood and lay it on the log, as one of the others would run over and take it. He seemed very strongly built, powerful at the chest, with oddly long arms and thicker hair than the others, and just purest of black. The other very large one seemed maybe a foot smaller than the last, but by no means were these small creatures. They were hulking, and I was very afraid inside. Not sure if it was female or not. No visible breasts were evidence, but no male appendage either. It got most of the lion's share of the meat put out by the male. The middle one seemed to be a lighter brown in color, but still very dark. Its face matted in the blood of the deer meat, and all of them smacked their chops, just savoring the taste of it all. The smallest of the 3 must have been a child of some sort. Its hair was far less dense, and its head was more rounded than pointed like the others. It, too, was still very large, though, I would have guessed it still over 6 feet. When it stood up on its tall on its hind legs, you could tell that these were not bears. These looked like giant monkeys from the zoo with much longer legs and no balance issues. These were most definitely Sasquatch of some type. Of course, all of my life I've heard stories, but never enough to convince me of this until here and now they are right before our eyes. All Max could do was squeeze the living crap out of my arm in amazement of what we both saw. Being downwind from the creatures, you got a hint of something foul on the wind, enough to make it uncomfortable, and we quickly didn't want to be discovered, and we backed away after just a few minutes of watching these incredible animals. Max and I retreated back quickly and quietly. We got maybe 30 yards from where we had been, and we heard a very loud howl of some sort and a whoop call, and then we could hear the creatures making their way through the woods the other way. As both of us had seen exactly as the other, there was no doubt other than what exactly we should tell others about what we saw. As we walked the 90 minutes back to the truck, we really didn't say much to each other besides Mac trying to come up with some other explanation while beginning to sit and saying, well, maybe it was, and then a quick, nah, Bigfoot. We saw Bigfoot. Well, when we got back to my house, my wife looked at us both and asked, well, did you get one today, fellas? To which Max just said, well, we shot and lost one. It happens. Max finished his beer and walked out to drive home. It's been 2 weeks and I still haven't heard from Max. I guess it'll take him a little bit more time before he's ready to go hunting again. These guys heard the stories and still didn't believe. It's always fall fun and games until the Bigfoot actually show up. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.